The cultivation of these conversations is additional work to create the resource to have the conversations that we could all benefit from
Yeah.
is work on top of work on top of work. So just wanting to connect those dots, I'll dig up the thread and
Yeah.
tag you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just got goosebumps just then. I can already feel like there's something powerful for us to talk about.
Mm,
I when you reached out to me on LinkedIn, first of all, it was absolutely instantaneous for me to recognize that we go together. But just
mm,
the whole concept of what you were talking about,
mm,
just your sound, just
mm,
everything, just instantly I knew that this was an easy accept
mm.
because I we go together, right?
Yeah.
But we've had some conversations since then, and they've been, and every time we connect it's powerful. And so that's why I want to take it further. Like, I want to take our relationship to another level today.
We're becoming official.
Yeah, yeah, right. I just, you know, Elaine, I've been doing this work long enough to know
Mm,
that you don't get to write a book like Unlearning Silence without some kind of experience and some kind of process and some kind of thing that happened, stuff that led to this. And so, I'm curious about that with you. I'd love, I'd love to talk, and I'd love for us to just really connect and talk and not worry about the recording. And then if what comes up is just too personal to share, we can decide what we do with this video
mhm.
afterwards, right? But yeah, the question that is right at the top of my heart here is, where did this really all start, and who the heck are you?
So now you're having me reveal my secret identities. I am human.
Mhm.
And I tend to start there when anyone asks me who I am, because I realize that some of the credentials I've picked up along the way or the experiences I've had. Someone said to me the other day, people are going to be afraid to ask you questions because you're the Elaine Lin Hering. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I just dropped off the kids in the rain while holding muffins for Teachers Appreciation Day, while being told that, you know, I don't even remember what the feedback was. Oh, I pronounced auntie wrong because it's auntie. So I feel very, very human, despite having gone to, taught at Harvard Law School, published a best-selling book, all these things. I feel very human, very broken, and also grateful that broken crayons can still color.
Wow, I love that.
And that has been something I've held on to. Unlearning silence started as a sort of intellectual exercise. It was supposed to be a business book. At the time, I was the only non-white partner of a global leadership development firm. My former business partners had written two New York Times business best-selling books, and we had gotten, a couple of decades of business out of it. And with them nearing retirement, I thought I had a responsibility as a partner looking around. We don't have any new content. The firm is going to go under if we don't have new content, and new content takes time to create.
Yeah.
So it started out as solving the problem of how to speak up, because I have always been told, I'm the youngest daughter of an immigrant family from Taiwan to the United States. I was always told, speak up, you need to make yourself known, you need to fight for yourself. If you don't do it, no one will. And then when I did speak up, I was told, you're wrong, you're too loud, oh, you're too quiet, you're not smiling enough. Actually, you're smiling too much. You cannot get it right
Yeah.
when someone else is creating the boxes that you need to fit into.
Yeah.
And I was answering the question of how do you speak up, much the way that I had been told to, right? The common advice is just do it, have more confidence, have more courage. And that always seemed incomplete, if not irresponsible. After George Floyd was murdered in the States, I was in the side yard between our house and the garbage cans. I think I had just taken out the recycling. I was breastfeeding a young child. We had family members undergoing chemo, and it felt, oh, and there was this thing called the pandemic with COVID. And it felt like if you're not on the streets protesting, you're wrong, you're bad, you're on the wrong side of history. And that's not to diminish people who chose to use their voice in
Yeah,
that way.
yeah,
So much as I thought, why am I not doing that? You know, some of it is my life circumstance. Some of it is, what is it? And I realized it's because I've learned to stay silent. I have been rewarded for it, not just biting my tongue and not saying the things, but literally censoring, removing, hiding parts of my identity in order to fit in, right? You're supposed to work as if you don't have kids and parent as if you don't work, because life and parenting is supposed to look like an Instagram feed, which is not what my life looks like.
yeah.
And to be a woman in a man's world, which corporate spaces very largely are, means that we're constantly trying to have executive presence, which means act like a man,
Mm.
except when we do, we don't have the same benefits. We face different biases. So I wrestled with unlearning silence for my personal life and my professional life, but also from this intellectual wait, we're diagnosing the problem incorrectly. It's
Yeah.
not that women need to go fix themselves, it's that we need to solve for silence. Certainly, there's the silence I, as an individual, have learned. There is also the silence that the people around me, their actions continue to silence me, make it okay for me to not be fully me.
Mm.
And after decades, I don't even know who I fully am, which is disorienting, disconcerting. I do not have time for that.
Yeah,
But also is that nagging question that goes away. And of course, we cannot deny the systems we're all part of
yeah,
and how the policies and practices that make up those systems support certain voices and silence others.
yeah.
So then it was a question of, well, what do I do with that insight? And at some level, really doubted whether anyone would buy it. Not physically buy a copy of a book, but after you spend a lifetime doubting your own thoughts and believing that your own worth comes from channeling someone else's thoughts, doing someone else's bidding, you doubt whether there's value to what you uniquely think. And I started to test the idea with clients, applying that to the typical speak up scenario. Also, we did a ton of training in skills development on negotiation, difficult conversations, feedback, and some people still wouldn't negotiate, have the difficult conversations, or give and receive feedback, no matter how much intellectually we know we should. And people would say, here are the tools, and those tools are useful, but it still didn't unlock what everyone was trying to do, which is actual communication that gets us to collaboration and innovation at work and intimacy and understanding and love at home.
Mm.
I can keep going
Oh,
if that's helpful.
keep
Okay, I'm
going,
going to keep going.
because it's really amazing. But,
It is.
let me just stick a pin for a minute.
Yeah.
So this whole thing, I mean, I've said over and over again over the years. I mean, I remember when I first started to hear the slogan almost,
Mm,
"Don't fix women, fix the system." And I I know exactly what that means, and I because I had really experienced the system that silences, the system
mm,
that shuts you up when
mhm.
you want to be anything other than what we call acceptable. You know, I've seen the system that will let you in as long as you don't rock boats, and you look and you sound, you do your best to sound like me. Do your best to be like me, and then we'll be cool. So
Maybe,
yeah,
maybe.
maybe yes. And that, so I had been experiencing that,
Mm,
And what I also had been experiencing, because all of my career, a really strong theme was really behind the mask with women,
Mm,
behind the scenes, up close and personal with women in a leadership capacity, in a development capacity, in a coaching capacity, like
mhm,
all through my life, all my roles have
mm,
really been with a heavy focus on leading women. And I I saw this other side too, that you can't persuade me that women are not powerful. Like I know it intimately, the
mhm,
power that is womanity, I call it.
mm,
And yet I knew personally and professionally through my work how we struggle so to bring that power to to important conversations, to leadership spaces, to high level governance. Like we
mhm,
find that so difficult to bring that voice there. And it has been a wrestle for me, under trying to understand, what is this about? So when I hear the "don't fix women, fix the system,"
mm,
get it, because what we're really saying is, don't try and make me be like you, to don't try and mold me to be like you to fit in. But I always retort
mm,
that whilst women don't need fixing, we do need healing. We
mhm.
do need a space to gather ourselves and remember who we are. Because just like you said, like it
Yeah.
can be so the system doing what it takes to survive in that world is like, it's almost invariable fallout, that you lose yourself, that you forget your power, that you just start like work and life just starts being like trying to contort yourself into all these molds that other people have set for you. So I believe that they go hand in hand. I believe that the system needs fixing. I
Mhm.
also believe that women need healing, they need
Yes.
space to remember, we need space, we need to gather to build ourselves back up. We need to,
Yeah.
all of this stuff needs to happen in tandem. So tell us a bit about your experience with that, losing yourself, and can you speak to that?
Yeah. I also want to pick up on that piece. I agree, it is fixing the system, but the systems are created by humans.
Yes.
So, yes, women need healing, and we cannot heal alone.
Yes.
That social isolation is part of what magnifies the real damage to ourselves, makes us think it is just us.
Yeah.
Rather, no, we are all living the same fact pattern.
Yeah.
And also the people around us. How are they contributing to either our healing or to our continued pain,
Yeah.
silence?
Yeah.
So there is an individual responsibility of, what do I believe? What have I internalized? Is there room for my healing? How much of what the world says to me have I internalized?
Yeah.
Because the world says you don't get to heal, you just need to perform.
Yes.
You don't
Yes.
get to be you. You just need to be whoever we want you to be: mother, wife,
Yeah.
widget maker,
Yeah. Yeah.
performer. And it's easy to say, particularly for leaders, to say, well, it's the system.
Yeah.
We create the system, we perpetuate or disrupt the system. How can we make it different for each and every person going forward? Because queen bee syndrome is real,
Yeah.
right? Women on women versus women supporting women.
Yeah.
And certainly any manager, leader, coworker can make our lives better or worse at work.
Yeah.
So, yes to fixing the system,
Yeah.
yes to healing, and yes to each of us owning the responsibility and opportunity we have to profoundly change how someone else experiences life and whether they get to be fully whole.
Yeah. That's so goosebumps upon goosebumps over here, because yeah, I actually think that women, if we can, what we're presenting today is the
I'm going to
conundrum.
breathe through this.
Yes, because what we're presenting today is like big stuff, one,
Yeah.
and the conundrum of the century.
Yeah.
It's like that systemic thing is real.
Yes.
That his inner history is real,
Yep.
and the need for change is real.
Yeah.
And so, like, personal change and systemic change is real. And I really believe, because I've seen humanity up close and
Mm,
personal, so I believe that she is really the answer. Like, I really think she's the answer to new thinking around how things could be.
mhm.
But we've got some work to do.
We've got a ton of work to do.
Yeah.
And as I think about the work, healing, that healing work is real
Yeah.
and necessary. There is also education
Yeah.
work. Not everyone believes that there is a problem here. It's working just fine for
Yeah.
some people.
Yeah.
There is the work of navigating the resistance and defensiveness to a different.
Oh, you gone?
Yep.
You broke up then. So you talk about navigating, and
Yep.
then you dropped off.
Awesome. And I'm just gonna double check what this. Um, okay. Um, we're back. I think it was my internet connection that was unstable, but I guess we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah. If we talk about the work that we have to do, there is healing work,
Yeah.
which we even need to get. Part of healing is recognizing that we need to be
Yeah.
healed because we are so convinced that we're okay. We've had to be okay. We've had to be strong. So it's really disruptive to realize I'm hurt, deeply
Yeah.
hurt. I'm not okay, but
Yeah.
in order to live, I need to be okay. So there's healing work, there's education work, because not everyone even acknowledges yet the problem
Yeah.
statement
Yeah.
as we see it.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting with Unlearning Silence because for some people, even the title, they get it immediately.
Yeah.
You know, I've
Yeah.
had people who are like, hold on, what?
Yeah.
I need a moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, breathe through that one.
Yeah.
Right? There's silence. It's not you, it's silence. And silence is learned so we can unlearn it. And it's unlearning, not because it's not a check the box exercise, it is
Yeah.
ongoing.
Yeah.
And then there are some people who are like, unlearning silence?
Yeah.
Do you mean unlearning science? Isn't that wrong? We're having very different conversations,
Yeah.
even about why we would, what is going on here? What version of reality do we see? And are we willing to accept?
Yeah.
And as we have those conversations, because we're most disproportionately impacted by it,
Yeah.
and therefore can see it more clearly and feel the responsibility and have the ability to educate, we naturally have to do a third thing, which is embrace other people's resistance,
Yes.
their defensiveness, the debate, ideally the dialogue. But we're already doing three things: healing, education, and navigating resistance.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a fourth thing called doing your day job,
Yes, exactly.
which is at professionally, whatever your day job is, but also carrying a disproportionate amount of caregiving and household responsibilities. Doing those four plus things
Yes.
is far too much for anyone at any given time.
Yeah. I mean, you talk a lot in the book about the resistance and the fallout of the repetitive nature of having to just be like a broken record, even just to master the agency over the way that you're treated, but let
Mm,
alone the bigger issues, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and there is a lot. I love how you've broken it down, the education piece, the healing piece, the resistance piece, and the doing your day job piece. And I see in my day job all the time just the unpreparedness we are for the long haul of that of all of that. And
Yeah.
also I see like the deep resentment that this isn't something that people just automatically understand, that like deep resentment about the resistance, deep. And I think, just those two, the unpreparedness and the resentment
Mhm.
that goes around this really weakens our stance.
Mm.
It undermines our
Mm.
ability to just stay the course, even. Like it weakens our stance. And it's a lot to deal with when you're
Yeah.
feeling so emotionally wrecked
Yeah.
by the resistance and all of that, right?
Yes, it weakens it because we're exhausted.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
And if we go back to self-leader system, what of that can we influence or change? Chapter 3 of my book is actually my favorite, which is When Silence Makes Sense.
Yeah,
Because so much of the narrative publicly is you always have to speak up. If you
yeah,
don't, you failed yourself, you
yeah,
failed the system. Again, you're the problem
yeah,
versus no, silence can be a survival strategy.
yeah,
Silence is a strategy for self-care and self-preservation. That's not to give ourselves a pass so much as to maintain agency, because the difference between silence that is additive or oppressive is agency.
yeah. I like when I read that chapter over and
Mm.
over because it's so powerful. The it it's in fact it's essential. It's essential knowing on this leadership journey that we're on as women right now. That, and I always say whenever I speak on podcasts or if I, on anybody's stage or any event that I hold, I always say, like, you don't have to speak. Like, you're looking after yourself is
Yes.
the priority. Like, it's the key. And, I tell the story often of years and years ago, I was walking along a street, and then before I knew it, I was hurtling towards the ground. I literally fell on my face. And
Mm.
what happened was a woman who had mental health issues came and slapped me from behind, but I didn't see her coming.
Yeah.
So I didn't see her, and she really thumped me in the middle of my back. I heard the thud, and
Mm.
before I knew it, I was on my face.
Mm.
Well, um, I my friend who I was with was helping me up, and I saw this woman. It was obvious that she wasn't really right in the head,
Mm.
and it was obvious that I was just this random victim of her outburst. Um, but as I think about that experience over the years, it slowed down. So the thing that I take away from it the really the most is that feeling of falling and not being able to do anything. That feeling of just like it's almost like when I think about it, it's like that split second feels like a long time, and I just feel that feeling inside of myself where I'm just powerless to do
Mhm.
anything but fall on my
Mm.
face. And I feel like I'm seeing that for a reason, because I think that it really speaks to how some of us go into our workplaces for all the reasons that drive us. I think it's because it's written in our DNA that we're leaders who are born to change the world, that
Mm.
really compels us to fight the system, to jump
Mm.
through the hoops, to go the distance, to find ourselves in these rooms. And when we get there, we're tired from the journey getting there, but also it's like we don't expect it to be this forceful, this brutal. And we find ourselves falling under the pressure of it all.
Yeah.
And I really think, though, that we can no longer keep being shocked about the pressure of it all. We can no longer keep being shocked about the presence of it all, the external situation that is this place called leadership.
Yeah.
And, because I keep thinking to myself, if only I'd seen her coming, if
Mm.
only I had, if only I'd
Mm.
seen her coming, if only I had, just stood and braced myself, or if only I had done, if only I had recognized the risk of
Mm.
that happening to me that day.
Yeah.
And so there's this balance that I think we need to get. Like, I don't believe that women are soldiers. that need to just
No.
like, keep going till they die. Like, I don't believe that. But I also don't believe that this is too much for us to bear. I feel
Mhm.
like there's this kind of a middle place. Do you agree?
Mm. My alarm bells go up anytime the word balance comes into a conversation
Well,
because it
get
seems
it.
such a myth. What comes to mind is twofold. One is there can be so much weight in if only I had done this,
Yeah,
or if I could change it, what if I were to have done this? Would it have made a difference? I don't know.
yeah,
You could have stood your ground and she could have the weight, all the factors. To me, the regret, the backward, our histories and our past are important, but they don't have to define our future.
yes,
So to me, the question is always, what are you going to do next? What's your next play? What's the next step? And really checking in to say, what are my values? How do I want to live life? If I have one life to live, how do I want to live it? Because if we're not constantly asking that question, we end up doing what other people expect of us because we often expect it of ourselves. If I am the only fill in the blank, I'm the first, the few, the only in that room, I feel tremendous responsibility to represent my entire gender, race, any other identity I carry. That is far too much pressure. I
yeah,
have so much respect for women, particularly women of color, who have actually chosen to step down from those roles to say, you know what? I'm not going to take it.
yeah,
My body is not going to take it
yeah,
because I cannot single-handedly do this.
yeah.
It also begs the question, if we're not doing it single-handedly, how can we support one another? Who is our team? I love the work that you do because we can, no matter how skilled we are, we always see it more clearly from the outside when it's not us.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of brain science and emotion around that, but we need people who know who we want to become, what we value to help us live that and help us be who we are and who we are becoming. We
Um,
cannot do
so
it alone.
we cannot, and that is, I say, I often quote that 800 women a day die in childbirth. 800 women a day around the world. Perhaps there's more now.
Yeah.
And the number one cause of this atrocity is a lack of skilled support.
Mhm, mhm.
A lack of skilled support.
Yep.
And I think it's a very powerful metaphor.
Mm,
I was watching Hussein Bolt the other day on Netflix, and he talks about his coach, like his coach is this short, big-bellied man. I don't even know if he can run for a bus. Like, that's the
yeah.
truth. But Hussein Bolt talks about his coach with such reverence.
Mm,
Like, yeah, it's my power,
mhm,
my body, my
mhm,
my positioning in the world, my this, my that, but none of it would be possible without this guy.
mhm,
And I think that's something that women we need to get, because there's this call. I believe there's this call to find ourselves in this place. I know
mm,
that we're not talking about balance here. We're talking about
mm,
finding ourselves in a place where we're not so blind that they can just knock us over, and we're not just enduring to the end,
mhm,
and so braced that we
mhm,
can't lead powerfully because
mhm,
we're really all about protecting ourselves. But
mhm,
we have to find this other way where we understand the terrain, we're
mhm,
skilled at navigating
mhm.
it, and we can stay soft and powerful in that space too. And that's my dream.
Yeah, and I think what helps with that is recognizing that there's sort of this 30,000-foot level.
Yeah,
Right. To recognize if you're just in it, it feels like too much, and we
yeah,
internalize that I'm personally flawed, I'm weak, it's me,
yeah. Oh,
versus,
yeah,
here are the four types of work that you're doing
yeah,
inherently
yeah,
day to day, whether or not you recognize it.
yeah,
And same with leadership, to be able to lead well, to lead in alignment with your own values means that you inherently are likely leading differently than the dominant paradigms and norms that we see from the leaders that are held up, that lead our current systems, that our current systems celebrate. And if we try to act like that, and sometimes we give each other the feedback, the most memorable feedback I've ever received in my life is, Elaine, be more man-like.
Yeah. Man up is the one that I hear all the time.
Which has so many layers and is so problematic. And even if I did that, it's not going to get me where I want to go because I am not a white male.
Yeah.
And it's not in alignment with who I am. So to acknowledge that the work that we're doing is disproportionately difficult because of the context that we're doing it in, it is not a personal failure.
Yeah.
That clarity of mind to me has been particularly helpful in book launching
Yeah.
because
How so?
I see it so clearly.
Mhm.
The people who get it, it resonates deeply. I've been so honored for the stories that people are sharing, the relationships they're getting out of the things that they're starting to talk about with even just one other person.
Yeah.
And if we look at external metrics, there are still plenty of people who are like, why do we need this book right now? Silence isn't an issue.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And there are a couple of choices. One is to say, I haven't done enough. I have failed. Another is to say, any time that you are trying to change an operating paradigm, it is inherently uphill because you not only have to define the problem before you need to define the problem before you can offer a solution. And it is a problem that people don't want to see.
Yes. Yes.
But to be able to see that clearly means, okay, this is where I'm at in this sea that we're all swimming in. These are the people who are on my team who remind me, you're not being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Here's the lay of the land.
Yeah.
I can be much more sober-minded
Yes.
about
Yes.
it than take it personally.
Yeah, for sure. I speak a lot. I come into contact with women a lot who are um resentful
Mm,
and bitter, actually,
mhm.
and downright frustrated
Yeah,
because of the ignorance
yeah,
and because of the indifference around these topics that actually shouldn't be such a mind-boggling thing to understand, right? And and
yeah,
I say
yeah,
all the time, like it is so. I mean, something else is going on here. That's my take on it, is that there's something else going on here. It's not just a case of, okay, we decided that we want to change this and this is how we do it, A, B, and C. There are invisible forces at work here. There are there are biases that we know about, and
mhm.
and things that are blocking it's like we've got one foot on the gas, like really pressing towards what we say we want, but the simultaneously there's a foot on the brake
Yeah,
going, no, we don't want this, we don't want to change, we can't stop, we have to keep it the way things are. These power structures, we want them to stay the same. Where black people are or where women are in the pecking order, we need it to stay the same. And and it it's becoming so clear that this is what's happening, that there is huge resentment. A lot of the work that I'm doing is about healing the resentment,
yeah.
and I think it speaks to a matter of calling.
Mm,
I feel like, why would people do this? When we first decided that we were going to get together and have this conversation,
mm,
we were looking at in the wake of what's just happened to Diane Abbott, and we were, certainly I was thinking, I really had a crisis of confidence because
Mm,
I'm calling women to speak up. I'm calling women to take their place. I'm calling women to show up, powerfully, as, authentically and powerfully.
mhm.
And yet I know the very real risk that's involved in that. I know the very real dangers. And I'm just being honest, had a real crisis of confidence
Yeah.
around how can I be doing this work? But then I realized that there are women around the world, I think you're one of them, otherwise you wouldn't have written the book, that are waking up to this recognition that this problem, as as unfathomable as it is that it exists, and as irritating as it is that it exists, feel called to be part of the solution, feel
Mm,
called to be part of the
mhm.
shifting of the needle, feel called to speak up and use their voice, even though there is this backdrop of risk and actual terror for what it involves. So, what would you say to that?
That it's all real.
Yeah,
That it is undoubtedly real. As I've been in book launch, book promotion, there's such expectation from people that book launch would be a happy moment.
yeah,
And people say things like, "Oh my gosh, isn't the most amazing thing to hold the book in your hands?" And I'm like, "No." It is almost against all odds that this book is out, that the book is out by the biggest publisher in the world. And you know more of my story than most, right? But the rest of life doesn't stop just because you're trying to write a book. All the things we've talked about, from the toxic workplace to the caregiving to the parenting to the bias to the that is all part of birthing, creating and birthing this book. So when I look at the book, I recall and see all that pain, but using your voice is not just a matter of courage or confidence. And this goes back to humanity because I guess apparently I appear confident on the outside, but I'm not. Courage is necessary, but not sufficient.
yeah,
But we use our voices as a matter of calculation. Once you see, you cannot unsee. I cannot remain part of the problem. I cannot remain in ignorance because I have seen. And also recognizing that despite the power I don't have, I have a tremendous amount of power and privilege based on where I went to school and the socioeconomic status and my life experiences. If I get, if I lose my job, which in the course of doing this I did,
Mhm.
I will get other work. I will be able to pay my bills. It will not be as easy, but I and my family will be fine. That is not the case for every single person. And so if I have that privilege, then let me use it to try to name the problem more accurately, to do some of the emotional labor and analysis for people. So when your well-meaning colleagues go to you and say, "Tell me what it's like to be a woman in a corporate space," you can say, "Actually, read chapters 1 through 5 of this book, Unlearning Silence, and then we can talk."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I'm so sick of people saying, "Elaine, what's it like to be an Asian American in America?" It's 2024. Go Google it or buy the book and then we can talk. Rather than doing that work on repetition, what is my offering? What is my contribution? And that is where I get to hope because each of our choices of whether to disrupt or to perpetuate the systems and the
Yes.
expectations does actually matter. It doesn't feel that way in the moment
Yeah.
because the impact isn't about us.
Yeah.
The impact is what someone else takes of it and what it might unleash for them and how it might nourish and encourage them. This is my offering. This is my contribution, and I'm so honored to get to be a messenger
Yeah.
in it. And years ago, someone said, your greatest work or your greatest ministry comes from your deepest pain.
Yes.
I hope that's true.
Well, I think you're living it out. And I'm definitely living it out. And I'm seeing woman after woman after woman who is either living it out or deciding that it's time to live it out or finding out that this is the way. Like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, like I am the gift here. Like my experiences are the gift here. Like, oh, me, the real me. Like oftentimes we're so masked up and
Yeah.
armored up
Yeah.
in to present in this kind of executive that we think that they want, that actually they've invited to the table, so we're just you know granting them their wishes
Yeah.
by kindly putting ourselves away and presenting who they invited to the table and
Hmm.
disconnecting from ourselves in the process.
Yeah.
But that's from that place we don't get to make the kind of difference that we are born, that we've been living, being
Hmm.
prepared for. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I think that there's a preparation work for
Mm.
that we should all be. That's my call is to preparation. My
Yeah.
call is to get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, because you are part of this, that
Yeah.
you are part of, your voice really matters. I know, as trite as that
Mhm.
can sound, like it's true, like your
Yeah.
voice really
Yeah.
matters in the
Yeah.
shifting of the needle here. And so
Yeah.
there's this preparation that I'm calling women to. And your
Mm.
book is really great in in giving like real practical things
Mm.
around what people can do to speak up and to bring
Mhm.
their real voice to the table.
Mhm.
But like in a nutshell, I want people to read the book, but in a
Mm.
nutshell, what I'm asking you now, just in closing, is um what what would you say to the woman who's listening to this? There are
Mm.
women who are listening to this saying, who are just at the end of their tether, like on the edge, or if not tipped over into burnout
Mhm.
because of the terror that's the awful situation that they've been dealing with externally.
Yeah.
There are women who have something, who just have this burden, this waking up sense that that this can't stay the same, and they feel like they're being called to be part of it. But my God, the look of being part of it is horrifying.
Yeah.
Like what are you saying around the preparation piece and the being part of it piece?
Mm. So many thoughts come to mind. I think we need to start with a fundamental truth, which is you are worth it. You are worthy. You matter. You are enough as you are. You are worth fighting for. I fought for you. I
Yeah,
know we both continue to fight
yeah,
because we care and we believe and we know that deep truth that we are worth while we are worthy, not because of what we can do, but because we are human and we matter too.
yeah,
And even if it doesn't seem like you have a choice, because we're so used to doing things a certain way, because the
yeah,
forces and the weights are so heavy, because we don't even know where to start. I'll repeat it, that our past does not have to determine our future. That is true of the systems. That is also true of our leadership. That is true for ourselves. Is it disorienting? Absolutely. Is it disruptive? Absolutely. Is it worth it to be able to live in greater alignment with who you are, who you want to be, and who you are becoming?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is our next step? What is our next experiment? What is our next play?
Yeah.
Because it matters for you and for the world that we are co-creating.
Yeah. I've had goosebumps the whole time you're talking
Mm,
because I feel this at my core
mm.
is 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 what we all need to really hear. I mean, not just hear like just a nice little podcast,
Yeah.
um, but really deeply internalize and hear
Yeah.
wherever we are on that journey. And I would add that, if you are listening to this you've tried,
Mm,
um, and you're burnt out and
mhm.
we're not saying you need to speak up today. Like you need to take
Mm-mm.
care of you today. Like you need to back off,
Yes.
back off,
Yes.
leave that
So
place.
voice, let's
Yeah,
be clear.
yeah,
Voice is not just the words.
yeah,
We talk about
yeah,
speak up, which essentially is use your voice. What
yeah,
is your voice? Your voice is not just the words that you say in a
yeah.
meeting. Your voice is how you move through the world.
Yes, it is so. You've said this so powerfully in the book.
Mhm,
You've said this so powerfully in the book, and it's such an important. Like when we say voice, we're not just talking about speaking up in the meeting and
mhm.
dealing with Bill, who's
Yeah.
like we're talking about who you are, what you stand
Yeah.
for, what you are
Yes.
here to bring to
Yes.
your organization, to your industry, to your field, and to your world, and to your life. And
Yeah.
this is all really important. I remember two things I want to share before we go. Just I remember watching a Martin Luther Jr. film,
Mm,
and I don't remember which one it was, but I remember it was, I think it was being told through his wife's eyes. The film was being
mm,
narrated through his wife's eyes. And there was a scene where, she's like, they're intimate, they're all loved up. I think it's kind of pillow talk kind of talk. And he said to her, "Don't worry, darling, we're going to get us a nice little house in the country. We're going to have us some children and we're going to raise us some chickens. We're going to just live a nice, humble life and just going to look after our little congregation. And
mm,
we're going to just, don't worry. We're going to have picket fences and,
mhm,
we're going to live a nice, idyllic, peaceful
mm.
life." And so, because we know who Martin Luther King Jr. is, so listening to that really made me chuckle because he was sincere in
Yeah.
just little life that he had planned for himself. And this man was gonna like to, change the world. And I think that's the same, just letting the penny drop. Sometimes we underestimate who we are and what we can accomplish. But I think it's about seeing something that you care deeply about, feeling a sense of, I can't not see it, like you said earlier on. I can't not see this and I can't not be involved. And in that case, now we need to start we can't just go like a bull in the china shop. I think this is what I'm learning. We can't just go like a bull in the china shop. We need to understand that it's hostile out there. There is resistance. You have your job to do. You have your family to take care of. You have you to take care of.
Yes.
And so we need to be strategic about this. We need to
Mhm,
be um open-eyed about this. We need to
mhm,
be wise thinking about this. You
mhm,
can't do it without community. You can't do
mhm,
it without thought. You can't
mhm,
do it. You have to get ready for this. And so,
mhm,
I you know, get ready, get ready, get ready, get
mm.
ready. Opportunities are coming for us to use our voice, and we
Yes.
need to be ready.
Yes, and part of being ready is resting,
Oh yes.
which is not what the world wants us to do,
No.
is
Oh
not how things are structured for
yeah.
us to do. That's why rest is resistance, and
Yeah.
it is so counterintuitive and is so what I struggle with, but it is the deep fundamental truth.
Well, it's part of our humanity.
Mm,
It's not something that is a nice to have. We
yeah,
need rest.
mhm,
We need sister time. We need
yes,
community. We need
yep,
rest. We need
Yes.
rejuvenation. We
Yes.
need to be refreshed. We need this to act in our real power. You know, I wrote a book. My book's called Influential Woman, and
Mhm.
let me just show you. My book's
Love
called
it.
Influential Woman, and it has 7 habits in there, you know,
Mhm.
for us getting ready to do this work.
Mhm.
And people ask me, is there anything that, I mean, I would, if as soon as I handed in the manuscript, I thought I could write the book all over again and it would be a different book.
Yeah.
But my regret is that there wasn't an
Mm.
eighth habit, which would be rest.
Mm.
I
My
regret.
want to be clear that rest looks different for each one of us because we are different human beings. So it is also the work to filter through, rest from a commercialized standpoint is go get your nails done or something. I don't even know. But what is restful and what is nourishing
Yeah,
to you is going to be different than what it is for me. And to give ourselves space to discover and acknowledge and honor what that is for each of us, rather than internalizing the messages that keep coming at us.
yeah. I heard somebody say sleep doesn't help when it's your soul that's tired.
Our souls are tired.
Our souls are tired.
Mhm.
Our souls are
Which
tired.
doesn't mean we can't color, right? Doesn't mean that we can't be effective, but it does mean we need to tend to our souls. At least that's the life that I want to live.
That's the call, I think.
Mm,
That is the call. Um, I've had goosebumps the whole time we've been talking. These are really rich ideas.
mm,
And I'm convinced that we're powerful, that we are part of shaping this shift that's
mhm,
taking place in the world right now
mhm,
through our marketplace leadership as well as everywhere else and everything else that we do.
mhm,
But I think it's time to get ready.
mm,
It's time to prepare.
mm,
It's time to be eyes wide open, clear about what the cost is
mm.
and how we're going to pay without depleting our bank account.
Completely. Completely.
Your work is incredible. Your book is phenomenal,
Mm,
so useful. I'm on my second time through, and I can't wait to see you in London. And I'm just so grateful for that you put the work in.
mm,
Uh, I know that when I was writing my book, I liken it to childbirth. And
mm,
what I realized in my coaching and you know, being coached through the process is I realized that especially for women of color, you
mm,
know, it was a dangerous act for a woman of color to express herself and bring her voice to the table and dare to think that she could influence anything. Like, you know, like this was like historically it was a matter of life and death. So I
yeah.
feel like I went through that. I know you did too, and and you did it anyway. So I applaud you. I really am so grateful for our connection,
Mm.
and I am cheering you on through the book launch season and beyond because there's much more, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thanks for being in conversation, woman to woman.
Yeah. Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Mhm.